Hello, today I want to talk about the alternative side of the spectrum of narcissism, which is an echoist, echoism. I somewhat recently discovered this term and realized that it applies to me very well and makes a lot of sense. So I just wanted to share my experience of being an echoist and kind of break down some of the traits of an echoist and how that compares to me, so I could share my experience with echoism. So the theory was basically coined by Craig Malkin. I haven't bought his book on narcissism yet, but I plan to Rethinking Narcissism by Craig Malkin, and it's basically the other end of the spectrum of narcissism. So, a narcissistic person is often quite self-centered, and an echoist basically like lacks a clear like sense of self, more or less. But in some sense, they are kind of about themselves in the sense of how they interact with others and how they exist in reference to other people, can be kind of concerned about how they're perceived by other people in a different way. Also, an echoist is typically the person becomes an echoist through childhood trauma or some other type of trauma in life. But it can be from having like a narcissistic parent or even like an echoistic parent as well, who just trains them to in the same way, also like probably out of fear. So basically, echoist lacks a healthy sense of narcissism. And I know this thing so well, but I don't know how to talk about it. And this is my life. I know a lot of things, but I don't know how to explain what I know. Anyway, the other thing I want to touch on is that echoism is not a personality disorder. It's actually a trait or like a survival mechanism. So it's kind of like learned behavior. So echoism is also not exact same as being a people pleaser, and echoism is not codependency, but can look like codependency. An echoist basically lacks a healthy narcissism, healthy level of narcissism, and echoists often fear praise. This definitely applies to me. On my own, I wouldn't have described it as fear. More so for me, it's just a dislike. It definitely makes me uncomfortable to receive praise. For example, I used to work in sales, and my boss was pretty vocal, and he praised me about something. I don't really remember exact situation, but in front of people, and I just didn't want to be perceived. I didn't want to be noticed like that, so I talked to him privately and asked him if he could just stop like doing that. Like I wanted to be like acknowledged in private with just like me and him. I didn't want it to be like a whole scene. I yes, I was, I guess, not wanting to be seen looked as narcissistic. I didn't know I operate in that way because I don't think like that. I don't think like, oh, I don't want to be a narcissist. I just, there are traits of narcissistic people that I don't like. But yeah, basically, I didn't want people to think like, oh, Taylor thinks she's hot stuff. I tend to not like people who are very boastful and arrogant either, which is ironic because I did date someone who, I can't say for sure, but most likely is narcissistic, and everyone except me described him as arrogant. I just was like, oh no, he just knows a lot, and was attracted to him for that reason because he would research things a lot. But yeah, he was arrogant. But I had my blinders on, and yeah, I just don't want to be perceived that way, which is interesting because I really like information. I really like a lot of facts, and I really like to share what I know, but I don't share what I know. I actually do I'm not comfortable sharing things I know. So most people don't really know me well at all, and they can know me for years and still not know things about me, because I don't just openly share information. You basically have to ask me the right questions in order to find out information about me. And yes, I'll tell you, or well, maybe I won't, but depends on who you are. But typically I'll tell people, but people just don't ask me the right questions because they don't imagine that I have the interests that I do. They don't, probably because I'm a woman, they don't imagine that I'm interested in stuff that I'm interested in. And I just don't share it. I'm very closeted. But deep down, I actually have this kind of like deep desire to let someone in my secret world. And that kind of almost reminds me of, like, I don't know if you've ever watched the movie 500 Days of Summer. It reminds me when Tom got to see into Summer's place and he felt like he was just invited into her world and he got to like see her deeply.
For Tom Hansen, this was the night where everything changed. That wall Summer so often hid behind. A wall of distance, of space, of casual. That wall was slowly coming down. For here was Tom, in her world, a place few had been invited to see with their own eyes. And here was Summer, wanting him there. Him, no one else.
So I have like this deep desire to like have a partner who sees me in that way, but most people I do not trust to allow in that way. Another trait of being an echoist is not having a strong sense of self. This one is hard for me to acknowledge. I suppose it's true about me, because I only realize now in my 30s that I don't really know who I am, and I'm a bit of a chameleon socially now. I haven't always been, but as I've gotten older, where I just kind of I'm autistic as well, so this partly plays into this, but where I just act like other people really, or I alter myself to fit who they are. So I suppose I don't have a strong sense of self, but I will say, like, when I get around my brother, I kind of feel like I'm more like myself, more alive in some sense. So I don't think it's a total case that I lack a strong sense of self. I just don't feel comfortable showing myself to other people. It's very difficult. Even when I try to, it's difficult to open up to people in that way. Like, I feel almost like frozen, like stuck, even if I'm trying to show myself that way. But I've been criticized a lot in my life, like, since I can remember. So, and not just by like family or friends, but strangers or people who barely know me. So yeah, like a lot in school and stuff. So another trait of being an echoist is to never need too much or to never want too much. And yeah, I definitely was trained in this way. It is extremely difficult for me to ask people for help. It wasn't until I got pregnant that I started allowing people to do things for me and accept it and like help me with things and not feel like I was in debt to them. Basically, I went through moving multiple times when I was pregnant, and the first time I ended up injuring my stomach. So then I was like, okay, well, you just can't do things like you think. So I realized, after relationships, it was an issue. And I was like, oh, I should, even with men I would date, I just wouldn't let them, like, even if it was like pumping my gas, I just wouldn't let them do it. Yeah, just stuff like that. Yeah, I just wouldn't let them do it. Or like, if a guy like got me a gift, I wanted to get him a gift that was like the same value or better. Not just guys, but like friends, anyone who give me a gift who's not my parent. I felt like in debt to them. I couldn't just sit with someone doing something for me. Definitely have a fear of being a burden. This one man gets me so bad. That's something I do not know how to shake. Even when I've been accepting help more, in the last 5, 6 years. But I definitely scatter it out. So like, I don't feel like I'm bothering someone too much. I don't feel comfortable asking people if they can do stuff for me at all, or maybe if I do, I'll pick like one person to like ask, which then I feel bad about that because like they're the only person I'm asking. Like then I'm like, I don't know how to tell if I'm asking them too much. Because I will find that often people won't tell me. Like they might hint, and then I'm autistic, so I don't get the hint. Like, and then I'm like constantly looking for the hint, and I'm like, is this it? Is this the hint? Or like, because some people just say things to be nice and they don't mean it. And I don't know. So it's a struggle for me to ask people for things because I just think like I secretly don't want them to be upset with me for, I have this like fear of upsetting people, like people being upset with me, or being annoying or being a burden or being too much bothering them. Yeah. So that just, yeah, I became particularly, when I was like, I can't remember exactly, maybe like somewhere between 16 and 19, 16 and 18, somewhere. And there I became hyper independent, and I just didn't want people to do stuff well, I felt like I just couldn't depend on people. I feel like I couldn't depend on people. I felt like, um I couldn't get help. I felt that's how I felt. I couldn't get my needs met, couldn't get help. I had to do everything myself. If I wanted to get it done, I had to do it myself. So I became very hyper independent. And this is something that like I don't know if anyone knows this about me. Um, to be quite honest, nobody on the outside looking in, nobody would think it, I think. Um, if they're not close enough to me. Um, but yeah, I went many, many years refusing to ask people for anything, even if I needed it, even if I genuinely needed help. Um, I wouldn't ask them. People offer sometimes, even in the past. I'd be like, no, no, I'm good, blah, blah, even if I was dying inside. Um, and now it's hard, especially I haven't been in a good financial position too, and I've had some people help me in that sense, and it's hard. I'll go periods of like not talking to them because um I don't want to burden them, or like if I need something I'll try to avoid talking to them so it doesn't come up, like they don't ask me, or because I won't lie. So yeah, it sucks. I even in my most recent relationship, my partner was like, "Oh, you're so hard to date because you don't need anything," which is not true. It's not even true, but I don't think he necessarily meant exactly how he said it. But I learned in a relationship, long term relationship, before that person, that like I finally learned like, oh, what my needs are, at least a lot of it. But knowing what my needs are and then like knowing how to get them met is a different thing. And definitely I've dated people here and there who, if I try to express a need, then they may kind of like fight back a little bit. So then if I ask for something and then you tell me no, if I ask for something you push back on me, then I'm just like done, forget it. I'm never gonna ask you again. Um, so that's also hard. Because yeah, I'm like, well, you said no. Yeah. Another trait of Equus is having difficulty with boundaries, and mainly in my relationships, I think. Oh, friendships. Yeah, depending on the friendship. Yeah, especially when I was younger. Boundaries of friendships. I would just I've always like prided myself in being an easygoing person. Like I thought for a period, I thought like, oh, that's a good thing, and it is a good thing to an extent, obviously. But I took a lot of pride in it. Like, oh, I'm just free flowing. I'm easygoing, easy, free spirit. Yeah, wherever. Okay, we can do it. Like, sure, yeah, that's fine. That was just me. Sure, yeah, let's go. Let's do it or whatever. Or yeah, it's okay, even if it's not okay. Um, I struggle to speak up when things bother me. Um, One thing about me, a lot of times if things bother me, I will get quiet. Or if I don't agree with something, I'll get quiet. And most people don't know this about me, and then they think that I'm fine. I think I'm totally okay with it. Because I get into like a freeze response. And then it's like I feel like I'm holding my breath and I just can't talk. That's literally how it feels. It feels like I can't breathe and I can't talk and I feel frozen and then time slows down and I feel like I'm in a warp. Um so I feel stuck and people be like, "Oh, work on it." And it's like I literally like I feel like I can't. I almost partly sometimes don't even feel like I'm present. I don't feel like I'm there. Like when something bothers me, depending on how much, if something bothers me, I don't like it, um I get kind of frozen. So then you can imagine then like as far as like speaking up, um it's difficult even if I do get to a point where I say something. If someone like, oh, this, and they push back, then it's just like whatever. So I'll find that the way I, especially when I was younger, would put boundaries up is by removing people's access to me. So instead of like saying this was a problem, I didn't like this, and trying to talk about it, I would just stop talking to that person, or I would maybe would talk to them, but I would stop physically hanging around them. So, you know, texting them, messaging, or whatever, but I won't physically spend any time with them. Um, as a way of like, that's my way of setting the boundary. Well, you just don't have access to me. And that was a way of protecting myself. And along with this comes that I'm just non-confrontational. I This got really bad after relationship with the person I mentioned, who I believe is a narcissist. This came after that relationship. We argued a lot. It was very exhausting, and after that, I just refused to argue with anyone for years. I just wouldn't even do it. Like you just couldn't get me to argue with you, um, because I was just so shot. I was so exhausted, and yeah, it's just even more non-confrontational. So if anything bothered me, I basically had like just developed a belief that if I spoke about things that bothered me, it would never get resolved. That doesn't only come from that person; it comes from another person in my life where we try to talk to them and get to a resolution or try to fix something. They don't want that. That's not what they want. They want things to go the way they want it. They don't want to come to a compromise. So then you will never get a compromise. So I then had learned, because those were with both of those people was my main interaction with people, period. So then I just kind of like had this, I don't really want to call it a belief, but I was just operating in that sense of that there's no point in bringing up anything that bothers me because it will not get resolved. I will not get my needs met, so don't even try. Just don't be around this person, or just suck it up, or just, if I could deal with it and suck it up, I'd deal with it and suck it up. Um, and some situations I was just like would be silently hoping for a change. Another trait that I don't have this written down, but another trait too for me personally is kind of like, oh, kind of, this kind of goes into like being a fixer, is just believing then in relationships, most of my relationships I was in, I believe that I could single-handedly fix everything. um I don't obviously that doesn't make sense. um that doesn't make sense, but I think I felt obligated in some sense. Yeah, I felt I was trained to do that. But I felt obligated, um in some sense. And then it was just a fear. I was too afraid to talk about it. And then I was like, oh, I could, if I'm non-confrontational, I don't want to talk about it with them because I fear the confrontation. So then it's like, if I just don't have to talk about it and I can just fix it by myself, hyper independence, and even in a relationship, I can just fix it behind the scenes and like everything's good and now everything's functioning, it's flowing back again. We're good. Like that was kind of my mindset um into it until I did it over and over and over again and realized like that doesn't work. And it will never work. Obviously, because it's two people. So, already touched on a fear of looking narcissistic. So yeah, it's one of the traits of being an echoist. Sometimes echoists can have a really high empathy, and I think this was true for me when I was like really really young, and I don't remember. Because I've been told that I was a very sensitive kid, and majority of my awareness of myself, I have not considered myself to be sensitive at all, period. Like I just was like, no, I'm not sensitive like at all, because I had learned to stop crying. I had learned that there's no point, suck it up type of thing. You know, strong, if you're strong, you don't cry. I learned these things very young. So I kind of sort of vaguely remember the period where I stopped crying. I got to the point where I would not cry in front of other people. I went through long periods where I would like cry like once a year, maybe max, and it would definitely be alone, not in front of other people. And also when other people would cry, I'd feel really awkward. I wouldn't know what to do or what to say. And it took me getting pregnant to start crying again. And now I kind of cry a lot now, but I think I did cry a lot when I was younger, like younger than five and younger, or 6 and younger. Yeah, I think I was kind of empathetic for a kid in some sense, and I'm only just now like tapping back into the empathy through motherhood, basically. I have a very empathic child, and definitely kind of just like tapping. He definitely triggered me, and turned that on in me, and so I've been tapping into that more. Definitely feeling people a lot more, which a blessing and a curse. I don't want to say I don't like it. But yeah, if you know, you know. So yeah, this will be part one of my echoistic traits. I'll do another video, so that this won't be like super long. But that just taps into it a little bit. I will say that I've gotten a little bit better here. And a lot of that for me has just been pushed through motherhood. I'm chronically exhausted and tired, and I can only take so much. So now I'm exercising a lot more boundaries in order to save myself. And also so I can show up as a better caregiver to my son, because I do try to shield him a lot. Yeah, I do. I do try to shield him a lot. I don't want him to lose himself. It's a huge thing for me to help my child preserve his authentic self. I do not want him to lose himself. You know, he may anyway, which only so much I could do, but I at least want to be able to remind him of who he is, and I try to keep my opinions and my belief, my preferences like out away from him. And I just try to meet his needs for who he is as an individual. So I do not parent in the way that I thought I would parent before I had a kid. I do my best to parent in the way that I think he needs me to parent. And I try to maintain an open mind and listen to him and what his needs are and what he needs from me. And yeah, it is hard because like I do have a fear. I'm like of obviously raising an echoistic child or a narcissistic child. Like yeah, so that extent I will say that extends to fear of looking narcissistic, it extended to having a fear of raising a narcissistic child, which I'm like, I hate, but because I'm sometimes the very thing you fight so hard against is the very thing that ends up happening for that same reason. So, um, yeah, but I definitely want him to have a healthy sense of self. So then I'm things I that were squashed for me, I try not to squash for him. But then sometimes I'm like, oh, am I supposed to squash it? Like will he get a big head? I don't know. Will he be full of himself and narcissistic because I didn't say anything? You can't win. I don't know. So anyway, I'll see you guys in the next video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, even though it sounds totally cheesy when I say it. It helps out. I would like to be able to create more videos and get monetized here on YouTube so that I can do that. All right, see you in the next one.